This is the weekly roundup presented by the Conversation Project, and I am Jay Cleveland Payne. I have 12 stories I present to you right here that caught my attention based on your engagement and what we talked about in our Conversation Project feeds on Facebook and X last week from Friday, April the 11th to Friday, April 18th, 2025. Now, we have a lot to get through in 12 stories, but the big ones include Blue Origin, Nayib Bukele, and Luigi Mangione. One of those names I've butchered pretty badly, and of course, 9 other stories for the week ending 4/19/2025. What does this mean? We're going to talk about those stories and more and go deeper in detail on what they were and why we're revisiting them on this Saturday from a full week of really full news stories. Now, very quickly, our website home is thisisconversationproject.com. Find out more about what we do, why we do it, and how we do it there. Email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com so you can have conversations on the stories we talk about and things in general. And remind you that our sponsor for today is Ground News. We'll talk more about them in a moment. But if you want to visit them now, go to our website, click on our affiliate link. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news and get news for 40% off their Vantage plan and all their plans to get the best news you can possible by literally getting all the news that is possible. As we said, this is for the week ending April the 19th, 4/19/2025. No particular orders as these stories go. The narratives go back and forth. We did group some stories together because they did flow into each other. That being the talk about the man from Maryland, who's a man from El Salvador, who's back in El Salvador, who can't come back from El Salvador. We'll get to him when we talk about President Bukele once again. I think it's Bukele. We'll butcher it many more times in the process of this broadcast. Let's start off with our first story to get to today, and we're sticking things off in Pennsylvania, where the suspect was arrested after the fire of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence. The 38-year-old man named Cody Balmer was arrested after setting fire to Governor Josh Shapiro's official residence in Harrisburg. So police say he used homemade firebombs and tried to trap people inside the home. The family was inside the home, but on another side of the building, so they were never really in real danger. They were evacuated pretty quickly. The governor and his family escaped safely, of course, and Balmer is facing serious charges, including attempted murder and terrorism. Still working to his motives. He's not quite said what he's doing or why he did it, but he did say didn't like the governor, was looking to hurt people inside going forward. Where we're going with this, we're not sure. Josh Shapiro gave a chance to give a big rousing speech afterwards about he will not be deterred for his faith because he's Jewish. This was the first day of Passover, the first Seder was happening. He will not be deterred by his politics. He's a very popular governor in Pennsylvania by everyone, right and left. And, of course, one of the popular rising stars in the Democratic movement. He could have been our vice president, or he could have been our nominee for vice president. Maybe they would have won. That would have happened going forward. What does this mean for Josh Shapiro? We're not sure. He's just going to keep on rolling and doing what he's doing. What does it mean for Cody Balmer? We will see when his trial actually comes to fruition. Our second revisited story is on John Morant, who is in trouble again, but we've not had any new trouble from this current non-trouble. Now, he is defending his grenade throwing celebration. He has sparked some controversy in the past for guns on Instagram, guns on social media, and finger guns in his celebrations. Something a lot of people do, something a lot of people did, but not really done so much in this situation, and especially with a guy known for having guns on Instagram. Big issues. But he has a new celebration which looked like him throwing a grenade and then putting his hands over his ears, which is what you see here. Critics called it intensive. Morant said it was just a fun expression, not meant to be violent. He's just trying to have fun. And he's going to keep doing it until somebody actually fines him for it. No one said anything about it yet other than this is bad. You should not do this. But until the NBA actually steps in and says, stop, you can't stop. The NBA warns players all the time about over-the-top celebrations. This was sort of kind of a backlash we had from football about a decade ago when they were having really weird choreographed celebrations and they were finding them, and it became known as the No Fun League for NFL. And now let them do fun stuff and do more things because they know it's part of the game. For basketball, some things are cool, some things aren't cool. People doing the swish things when they happen and people doing a little shimmy was one thing. But the guns and the grenades may be a line crossed too far. Or maybe they're actually just fun and the fans don't really get anything out of it. It's just the NBA wants to complain about something. Our story at number 3. A protester tased during Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's town hall event. 8 protesters, actually 2 were tased at a town hall event. 7 were arrested overall, escorted out by people. Video shows one incident of the tasing incident, which has been overseen by many folks over and over again. And no, I'm not showing the tape because we don't do that here. She defended the police responses because there were critics of that one, saying there might have been too much force. Injuries may have been there. No serious injuries were left by anyone who was reported, so it was there. Of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene took the time to not take live questions, but take questions that were predetermined, not necessarily the problem. Reading them off a video screen, not so much a problem. Calling her constituents brainwashed by the liberal media, kind of a problem. Now, the kind of a problem that shouldn't be, but is being turned into one by the people involved. Blue Origin launched an all-female crew into space, and is being called by many headlines, including ours, all-female celebrity crew, with Katy Perry, Gayle King, and Lauren Sanchez. The reason behind all the backlash is because Katy Perry, the singer, the journalist Gayle King, and pilot Lauren Sanchez, who is a helicopter pilot and a former journalist, and engaged to Jeff Bezos, who basically paid for the flight. They are getting all of the accolades when there were 3 other people on the flight, one person being a film person who would document the flight, 2 other being actual scientists. And the backlash after Katy Perry came down and kissed the ground after being in space for 11 minutes, and Gayle King saying, I'm an astronaut. You go to space too. You be an astronaut. Is that only 2 people of the 6 in there are actually qualified to really be real astronauts. And on top of that, the main reason anybody cares about this particular flight, because other flights have gone on and on and on, is because they weren't just billionaires spending money to go up into space. They were famous people. They were famous ladies. It's all a publicity stunt. No actual science, as far as you can tell, was done while in the space for 11 minutes. And by the way, there are a lot of people who were looking to images that were like, maybe this thing was actually faked, moon landing type stuff. It's a big kerfuffle, and it becomes a larger kerfuffle because Gayle King and Katy Perry are sort of poking the bear and saying what they did. Now, of course, you can say what you want to. If I had $1 billion to blow and I would think I wouldn't blow up in space, I may fly up in a flake-looking rocket to float weightless for 11 minutes. Technically, they're not in space. But that's where things come down. It was a grand gesture. It brought more light to SpaceX. Blue Origin. It brought more light to Blue Origin, more to space tourism going forward. And it's a big commercial paid by Bezos to show off his girlfriend, just how much he can do for her. And we'll see what she can do for him, I guess. Coming in for the 5th story, and it's not ranked. This is the story in the order we put them in there. Donald Trump wants an apology from Harvard after the administration killed a bunch of its funding, $2.2 billion worth of funding, based on the fact that they weren't doing enough for anti-Semitism. The climate of anti-Semitism and ideological intolerance on campus was high, says the president, says officials. So they cut the funding because they're still pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, or the DEI stuff, and merit-based hiring practices. Harvard said, no, we're not going to back down. We're going to do this stuff. And so from that, some other fundings from the government was taken away as well. They have a endowment that's about in the tens of $billions of dollars. So they have money on the books that they can spend. It is, of course, it's already a kind of earmarked for other things. So that would be a shift going back and forward. And this actual federal money goes to other programs, other scientific things, other things that would pay for those things going forward. So it is a loss of money to what would be going on to Harvard, because they have to re-diverse funds to other places. And of course, lost to things that the government really needs, like research and paying for folks like that. The biggest deal with this administration is trying to get changes to Harvard and all universities to deal with, I don't have the statement here in these notes here, but basically change the narrative of how schools teach things, not be so open. This has been seen by many folks as a power grab by the administration to basically control the institutions, because it's a power grab by the administration to control the institutions. Harvard is the first one to really step up and try to fight it, because they have some money and some time to play around with it. We will see if other smaller universities can do this, and some of the prominent ones that have already sort of kowtowed to them will have a chance to spark back up now that they know someone's in their court. Joe Biden's back. Joe Biden was for about 20 minutes in the teaser graphic for this thing because he's back. Then I realized I didn't really care that much, so we took him out. He's still here because he's important in the matter that it's hard to care about him. Joe Biden gave a speech at a Social Security convention, a convention on people dealing with retirement, to talk about Social Security and basically say Trump is screwing it up. You can agree, disagree with that one. But his first public speech accusing Trump of administration of destroying Social Security went out saying that jobs being cut by the agency, trying to cut the agency basically by 40%, hurting millions of Americans. In the real news, Trump is going to cut Social Security by a lot. He's going to cut the IRS by a lot. He's cutting many places by a lot. But what's happening is the actual work being done will be done by less people and be done in less efficient ways. Although DOGE says it's going to beef up computers to go forward. In the meantime, Joe Biden gives a chance to say how bad Trump is doing in 2 months when we all know how badly Joe Biden was doing in health and in actually managing things in the last couple of years of his presidency. The biggest problem is that Joe Biden is bringing his face to be seen and to be a part of discussions when no one wants him to be a part of discussions. It's his return to national political conversations that no one actually wants him to be involved in, me included, as just the commentator doing the YouTube thing. I don't need him. We need someone who can actually get things done, not pointing towards his super young folks, but someone who can get things done, as Biden was not able to do on the tail end and collapsing what was maybe progressive, maybe not to your liking, too liberal, but functioning government before we got to the last 100 days. Your mileage may vary, or your thoughts may vary based on what you're looking for in your government and your people running them. Joe Biden, not what I'm looking for in my government and my people running, talking, or communicating with them. 6 stories down, 6 more to go. Here's where I ask for your favor. We need you to like, share, and subscribe to the works we're doing, specifically this thing here and what we do on our YouTube channel, on our X feed, and our Facebook feed, because this is where the main stuff comes. Our daily show called Things You Might Have Heard, Monday through Friday, are updates of news stories from the weekend and then the previous days to get you what we're talking about for our conversational picks. All these stories here were considered part of the week that was in those headline stories. So if it was covered inside of Things You Might Have Heard, you might have seen it here. It's that simple. What we're looking for from you is simply to, if you enjoy what you're seeing, or maybe you enjoy it, it just sort of irks you, like it so that I know that I'm picking the right stories that are getting you fired up, whether for you don't like them or you love them, want more talk about them. If you want to get more in the way of what we do, like it. Also, it tells the algorithm that what we're doing is kind of cool, and it'll share it more folks. So hopefully they'll be into what we're doing and they'll like it as well. We produce about 42 stories all week long, 10 on Monday and then 8 the rest of the week to get to you for these 12 here. If you like them, I'll pick the right ones here or the right ones all week. Let me know. Share this with like-minded people so that you know people who enjoy this type of commentary and news coverage will get it directly to them. They may like it and share as well to get more people in what we call our News Nerd Nation. We're news nerds. And subscribe if you're not getting this natively in your feed on X, on YouTube, on Facebook, and maybe you want to get us on the TikTok feed for the hot takes as well, or get our email newsletter at our website, or get us in podcast form, audio form, wherever your pods are cast. That's there as well. Like, share, and subscribe so more people are gaining in our conversations. You have more people to engage and make these conversations more conversational, more relevant. We'll tell you about how to make the conversation more relevant, how these stories get here after we finish the next 6 stories. Now, for story number 7, we're going to Florida State University, the state of Florida, and talk about Phoenix Egner, who is the suspect in the Florida State University shooting from this week. He used one gun, a rifle that jammed, and then a second gun, a handgun that belonged to his mother, a former sheriff's deputy. It was a gun that was decommissioned by the sheriff's department, which she purchased as a personal weapon, which she had in her home. Now, this person is an adult, 18 years old. He's a college student, not a child, not a minor. So what we've seen lately in the adults being charged for minors having access to guns, no, not happened there. He's also been a member of one of the auxiliary board type things, the police shooters commission, hanging out with the county sheriff's department as one of the junior deputies type thing. So he's been really around law enforcement and that actual law enforcement entity for a while. In the melee, 2 people were killed. Only one person was identified by the time I saw anything here. He was not a student there. He was a worker there. And 6 people were injured total, including Eichner surviving the shot there. No criminal history, no issue what's going on. He does have a history of being a bit of a radical and having big ideas and being pushed away from various organizations for having some pretty thick ideas and anti-Semitism, things like that. But other than that, no actual record to pull from to go by. Stories number 8 and 9 are definitely connected. They flow into each other. Now, of course, a few weeks back, Donald Trump sent planes to El Salvador with gang members from Venezuela to house them there. And that's a whole nother kerfuffle on its own. But one particular issue that they're having is with one particular inmate, a man named Kilmar Abreu Garcia, who is not from Venezuela. He is from El Salvador. And he fled El Salvador when he was 16. Now, from there, the story gets very, 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 very odd. So we'll get to that in story number 9. But the big issue is he was deported to this jail in El Salvador. And the judge says they have to bring him back because he's not part of this gang. He's not part of this here. He is listed as a lawful citizen, resident of Maryland, and cannot and actually cannot be deported to El Salvador. Of all the places he could be deported to, there's a list, and that list says El Salvador is not on it. He can't go there. So President Trump says not much he can do. He's in El Salvador's hands. The president of El Salvador, who visited Donald Trump this week, said there's not much he can do, even though it's in his hands. And he basically says just because he was mistakenly deported doesn't mean anything because he's not going to do anything. Donald Trump says he's a criminal, so he's a criminal. He's staying in jail. He's saying that it's no big deal. It's just what happens. There was a trade going back and forth. Now, we learned more from the trade and the insight that the Trump administration has given a lot more money than expected to the government of El Salvador to house these people. And negotiations or talks are being done to maybe send some homegrown terrorists, homegrown individuals, home-funded folks that the president doesn't like down to El Salvador for a long trip. Issue that is, it's one thing to deport people who are not citizens of the United States who may be illegal as well. It's something else to deport people who are actually our citizens and have rights, especially when you're not doing the due process. Now, let's roll this into the next story, which is essentially the same story, where we have a meeting with Mr. Kilmar Abreu Garcia, who meets with his senator, Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. Now, he is not a resident, but he has status that can be legal. His wife is an American citizen, so there's that connection. He's a father there, and he has papers protection saying that he is working through some issues and can't be deported to El Salvador. If they decide other places, that's fine. But Chris Van Hollen went to El Salvador to go talk to his constituent. He went to the prison where he's supposed to be held and was sent away. A meeting was sent where Abreu Garcia was taken to the hotel where Van Hollen was staying, and there was a meeting there. They had a chance to talk. The pictures we have do not come from the senator's office. They come from the El Salvador social media. El Salvador's people would picture them sitting there in a nice little setup where they have margaritas or something that looked like margaritas next to them, which they did not drink, having their discussion. Abreu Garcia looks pretty well kept, all nice and clean, ball cap, everything going forward, all those things there. This is where it gets a bit crazy. Now, the story behind Abreu Garcia is a bit odd because there's documents of him having a charge against spousal abuse, charges of a restraining order from about a decade ago. There are issues about whether he actually was in a gang before he left and when he illegally migrated to the States, going back and forth, whether he is actually involved in child trafficking and sex trafficking and all the trafficking you do right now in the States because he's a bad dude and actually in a gang. All those things are being played up on one side of media. The other side of media is playing up the fact that he's a father. His wife is an American citizen. He was picked up unlawfully. That part is true. He was put in a place he couldn't go to by law. That part is true. And so there's the conflicting arguments on what to do with him. And the fact that he is here illegally, so he could be deported. That is true. The optics of this picture, and I went about 2-3 minutes specifically on this picture yesterday in Things You Might Have Heard, on the optics on this picture just showing what's going on. That was before I knew that it was actually a setup by the El Salvadoran people to make it look just as worse it was. We do know that Abreu Garcia is no longer in the big super duper scary prison anymore. He's in a better place, if you can call it that, being treated a little bit better, but he still has no access to any counsel. None of his lawyers, no one there, and he's still basically out there. This was a set-up meeting to make everyone look bad, including social media from our federal government, the Trump administration and El Salvador, saying, look at them sipping margaritas. They weren't sipping them. They were placed. I wonder about y'all sometimes. The overall y'alls out there who respond to what's going on. My politics are right of center, so I do stand on the conservative point of view, but I do have a lot more kindness in my heart for other folks in a struggle, if you will, and people that are different, because a lot of people are different. But when I get a lot of things that are super duper Trumpian, if you will, or super duper right leaning or MAGA, I get a lot of response from the MAGA folks, and it's not something I'm well, I guess I'm proud of it, but not something that I'm publicizing, because that's not what we do. This is supposed to be an even-handed conversation. This headline here and the clip from this one has gotten so many responses saying, good for them, we should do it too, that it makes me worry about who my audience is. I don't want you going away, but I want a bigger mix of people to either give some counter arguments or some very, let's say, structured fights, structured spars, if you will. The headline for the story at 10 is Hungary passes constitutional amendment banning HGBTQ public events. Hungary passed a controversial law in their constitution. It is codified. It is there for public events that are celebrating pride parades, HGBTQ type events. It even outlaws their large pride parade that happens in Prague every year. It defines gender strictly on male and female based birth, so there's that, and allows surveillance of to identify people banned at gatherings. So if you go to a gathering, at banned gatherings, saying that properly. So if you have a gathering, you can start being followed. This is a key signed by Prime Minister Viktor Orban and his government, saying that it's about protecting children, but human rights groups say it's a serious step backwards. This is where the arguments begin. There have been so many comments saying, Hungary's got it right. Hungary has the right idea on this. Why don't we do this here? Children should not be subjected to all the seriousness, craziness about this. There are points to that side. It is also about limiting rights of people to be themselves and to exist. This is not saying that gay people don't exist and pride things should not exist, except not in public, but it is going to the gender thing, which is something we're not going into right now because we're just not doing that one. It does define the gender issue, which is a big deal. And for some reason, that is the hill people are dying on. They're not dying on jobs. They're not dying on feeding kids. They're not even dying on the autism thing, which is a big deal. They're dying on the influence that people being trans have when they are a very, very, very tiny percent of the population going out there who literally can't fight back if they wanted to, because there's only 1% of them. It's that way. So this is a way, I guess, to keep them from fighting back. In Hungary, it's there. And of course, from your comments, you guys want it seen many other places. You guys want it seen right here. I don't think we're going that way. Our Constitution is still a bit open about people being themselves, even if the themselves at the time in 1776 wasn't exactly themselves we are now. But this is a story. This is a topic. This is an issue that we're going to keep talking about because it's conversational. It's also one that I'm going to keep my mouth shut on a lot of it and just kind of sit back and say, here are what's happening. Let me know. Let's discuss them piece by piece, because my opinion doesn't matter. My opinion is literally kind of a no real opinion. Trans people say they exist. I'm okay with that. They're not bothering me. They're not standing on my lawn. They're not, throwing tornadoes at my house. We can live with that. Apparently, some of us cannot quite live with that. Trump not quite out of the news with a Trump-related story. We did talk about Trump and the administration wanting to sort of beat down on universities, Harvard being one target that's fighting back. But this is a specific thing for President Trump, as he wants some punishment, paying a big price, is to quote, to CBS and 60 Minutes for some coverage. He criticized some coverage a few weeks back on 60 Minutes where they had an interview with President Zelensky from Ukraine, who basically is saying the nicest way he can say it is that Trump is just being misled by Russia. Things aren't working out the way he says it is. He should kind of pay attention. Also in that, some other things as well that kind of made him look kind of foolish, would make him look foolish. Because of that, because someone is basically targeting the president for things that he doesn't agree in, he believes that the FCC should fine and basically pull the license and get rid of CBS and 60 Minutes. That's what's going on. He already has a defamation lawsuit against basically everybody, CBS included, but we're going to see what happens going forward. As of the time of this writing, and it's been about 2 weeks since he said this, or a week or so since he said this specifically, this is a weekend thing, CBS has not actually responded to this one here. They're dealing with the lawsuit they got going on, which they want to go away as best as possible because there's a merger they're trying to work on. But this one in particular, nothing said yet. And the final story for this weekend, we go to Luigi Mangione and work being done as he's finally been indicted by the feds for the murder of United Healthcare CEO from a few months back. Brian Thompson shot in cold blood on the streets. We see that in pictures, and the assailant, who looks a lot like Luigi Mangione, is now on trial, now indicted. Not trial's not it, but now been indicted by federal charges, in which he will have planned out a deliberate killing of a personal beliefs of the healthcare system, which is bad. Treated as capital murder, death penalty is on the table, and Pam Bondi says death penalty is what we're shooting for. We will see if he gets that and what happens in the other court cases he has. State cases for the state of New York, state case for Pennsylvania, nothing is serious there. Only in Pennsylvania is basically having a handgun and giving false ID. Every place else, it's a murder charge, and we'll see how they play out. We'll see if this becomes a trial of the decade, century, whatever you call it, as many people are falling in love, literally, with Mangione and his thought process because they hate healthcare systems and love that a healthcare system CEO got killed in cold blood. They literally do, by a guy who felt egreged, although that's not quite the way to have your egregiousness, not a real word, taken care of. We are at the ending of our stories, 12 stories that we promised you that we re-looked at for the week that we revisited. We'll talk about our calls to action and how the Conversation Project works in just a minute. But first, a pause to talk about our sponsor, which is Ground News. Ground News is a great tool, whether you're looking at the app or go to the website. If you're looking to see what's going on in the news. Now, if you see a headline someplace, whether it's a headline from a place you like or a place you don't like, and you scratch your head over what exactly it means and how the coverage is being covered, go to Ground News. Ground News will give you all sides of an issue. They'll tell you what's being produced by all the major players who are producing these stories. Whether it's a local story, a national story, or an international story, they have links to all of the outlets and what they stand by, whether they lean towards the right, lean towards the left, who they're owned by, and what type of things they actually usually produce. In fact, you'll see the headlines side by side where one headline from a right-leaning source may say something's really mean and the left-leaning source may say something really nice and vice versa. You can see how the coverage is being played. There's also a blind spot feature for blind news, for Ground News, that allows you to see things that are being covered exclusively by a particular outlet, a particular event of purpose, particular thought process. Things that are super duper big on the right that they want to beat people down on that the left doesn't want you to talk about, or may not actually be that big of a deal, and vice versa, going back and forth. You can see all the news from all the sources and get all the details you want to, and you can really do your research and really see what's going on. You don't really understand what's happening until you see what the other side is talking about, and Ground News does that. Right now, by using our affiliate link, this is conversationproject.com/Ground News, you can get 40% off their plans, including their Vantage plan, which is their top plan, and it comes down to about $5 a month when you actually go down to it. $5 a month for big, super duper news coverage. You got it. It'll take care of you. They'll take care of you with Ground News. We use Ground News to verify many things we see online just because they're out there. And sometimes when we're in a pinch, we want to see what's happening out there that we're missing. We'll go to the blind spot and find some things out there and pull some things that may actually make our blood boil because of what they are, but they're there. So check out Ground News. I'll put it on your phone or watch it on the website and use our link. This is conversationproject.com/Ground News for 40% off their plans to get in the best news ever and the best deep dive coverage ever from Ground News. Conversation Project lives online at this. It's conversationproject.com. We begin this segment for the calls to actions, behind the scenes stuff every single week by starting off with our partners, give them shout outs for being cool people, giving us financial insights to get things done. Not enough to pay the bills, but paying some of the bills going forward. We include Harold Braxton, Kobe Green, Eldon Kidd, and Joy Winters. Those first three in our cup of coffee tier of $5 a month, and the last one, $1 a month for Joy Winters. All this does is allows you to have an extra say of what goes on. Now, everyone that wants to come and communicate gets proper communication. We'll explain that in the calls to action in just a moment. We use a platform called buymeacoffee.com. And you go to buymeacoffee.com/jclevelandpayne, and you can sign up for a monthly subscription of contributions to us to make sure we keep things going. Now, there's also at our website, the donations page, links to one-time donation links on your favorites, Venmo, Cash App, things like that. So you can give us things as you feel the need to. But if you want to give us a ongoing standing donation, we'd love that as well. Help keep things going. Now, partners aren't the only people that get a chance to hang out with us and talk about what's going on in the news. That's where we go to all the calls to action, we call it. Quick reminder that our website, of course, is thisisconversationproject.com. Our email address is theconversationinbox@gmail.com. You can email me anytime you want to, and I will engage in you. I read every single email and go through most of the comments, even when they get kind of wacky, to converse directly with people if need be, or for emails to kind of explain things going on. If we cover a news story and you think we should have covered a different news story, it is what it is. If we cover a something you think we should have covered more of something, it's there. Now, how the stories get covered are interesting because, as I say constantly, this is a dialogue and not a monologue. So we post news articles, links to news all day long, every 50 minutes or so. We have gaps, we get behind on things, but we post them to Facebook and X. Facebook.com/thisistheconversationproject and X.com/th_conversation. And all you need to do is engage in the stories. Like them, love them, hate them, share them. Do what you can do to be a part of the show. Engage in the stories, and you'll get a chance to have your voice be heard. What we do every weekday morning, we have a show called Things You Might Not Have Heard that comes out on the same feed, long form like this. And for Monday, we take the top half of stories, about 45, 50 stories of 90 we get for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a teeny bit of Monday, and pull 10 of them to produce for you in a show like this. For the rest of the week, we get 30 stories in a day, so we pick 15, 16 to look at of the top ranging and give you 8 of them in the program. From there, that's, if my math is right, 42 stories for the week. We take those 42 stories and pick 12 of them to revisit for this weekend wrap-up. So I can say I produced something for the weekend. It kind of works that way. And you have to say, the more you engage in a story, the more you click on the emoji that corresponds to what you feel about it, the more you share it with other folks, the more you comment on it, the more numbers of engagement it gets for a score, the better chance you have of talking about it if it's one of those top range stories. Now, like I said, we take a top range and we pick the ones that seem to be the best narratives. If you think we picked the wrong stories, email me and complain about it or do what you can. We'll do our best to focus on the ones you want to. We get a good mix of things, and we come back here for this weekend show to show you the mix of things. And from the hot takes, the clips from the stories we do every day, that's where I get the real engagement of people going deeper into stories. I know I picked a hot one when I get lots and lots of comments on them going forward. Like I said, this thing about the pride parades in Hungary, oh, those are spicy. The story we had about the DEI being one of the reasons that the Boy Scouts or that Scouting America is being culled from the military, that one was spicy. Ja Morant, oddly enough, very spicy. So if you want to get into it, you basically follow us on our feeds and let us know what stories are interesting to talk about. Then follow us daily for things you might not have heard and see what stories you pick on a daily basis. And then see which stories get the extra treatment for the weekend here for the Conversation Projects. Things you might, weekly roundup, which we have wrapped up for the day. We've rounded up and we're done. This has been the weekly roundup for the week ending April 19th, 2025. It is Easter weekend, so if you celebrate, have a joyous Easter. If you're watching this on Sunday, he is risen. He is risen indeed. If you don't celebrate, look out for somebody and just kind of be open-minded to what's going on, because everyone has their own things happening. There's a lot going on right now, and so be more open. And yes, have your opinion. Yes, feel what you want to feel, but please be a bit more open, because the Conversation Project is about a conversation of people who aren't exactly like-minded but can agree that we can talk about these things. Love you, mean it. Make sure you're staying limber and hydrated on task for all the grand things you're here to do on this life. Make sure you keep your life as a marathon, not as a sprint. What 12 stories will overtake these 42 stories of the week for next week that we talk about? We'll have to wait till next Saturday when I record this and see.